there's nothing like cracking that cellophane and pulling that record out. It just smells great.
Welcome to BODS Mayhem Hour.
Non-stop hardcore energy.
I love the show, guys. You're awesome.
Unlike any other.
With your host, John the Bod, a.k.a. the Bodfather.
Man, this stuff rocks.
Hello, this is John Kevill from Warbringer, and you were listening to BODS Mayhem Hour.
The views and opinions of the guests do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of BODS Mayhem Radio Network, its staff, affiliates, or sponsors. Parental discretion is advised. Welcome to BODS Mayhem Radio Network.
Hey everybody, welcome to BODS Mayhem Hour. I'm your host, John the Bod, a.k.a. the Bodfather, and as always, I'm bringing you guys and gals awesome interviews. Today, it's an honor and a huge privilege to have John Kevill, vocalist of Warbringer. Warbringer is set to release their new album, Weapons of Tomorrow, scheduled to drop on April 24th via Napalm Records. Also, Warbringer has remastered 2 tracks, Firepower Kills and Power Unsuppressed, which is also on this new album. And you can also check out Firepower Kills right now, and you definitely want to check that out. So, John, how's it going, man?
Going great. I've been basically cleaning up the house today. I grilled last night, so I just was like watering the yard and scraping off the grill and waiting for your call here. It's been a pretty leisurely day. Had family over last night, and I've been really excited that we're putting out new stuff for the record. We got a music video coming out a week today for a new track. So we recorded it back in July, and I've been sitting on it ever since. And it's really exciting. I finally get to talk about the thing now, and people get to start hearing it,
So how's it been working with Napalm Records for you guys?
Oh, just fine. The label pretty much fronts the budget for us to record a record, and then we get to record a record. And, at the level we're at, there's no interference, and we can write whatever the hell we want. So, what do I have to complain about? Someone's funding me to make music, so I love it,
Oh, yeah, for sure. And how much stress does that take off you guys as far as creating an album and having that time to do it and not being rushed, man?
Well, I mean, we took 3 years, and, so the remix and remaster you alluded to basically was the second draft, because the first draft we got, we were like, we didn't think it was bad or anything, but we expected better sound of ourselves. That's why there's this initial release of the song, months passed, second release of the same song, because basically we had time and wherewithal to update it, and I think we even pushed back the release of the album to do this. I think we're kind of, and the label let us do this because, they ultimately hold the rights to it and can release the record when they want. So we had the freedom to kind of stick around and take our sweet time and make the thing exactly how we hoped it would be. And so that's great, because I've had it in the past, particularly our 4th record, Empire's Collapse, where the mix process, the guy was supposed to be mixing it, didn't, and we had some other guy who came in at the 11th hour, and we weren't super thrilled with the results, but we had to put it out anyway, and so we were really trying to avoid that on this one, and just I always make music with the idea that I myself am like a fan who's going to buy the record, and I'm going to hear the record, and what do I, the metal listener and fan, think about my record? And I want that to be the highest standard possible. I want to make a record that if I was a listener, I would pick it up and I'd be like, this is my ideal metal record, because, of course, that's what I'm going to try to make. So it's really important to us, and basically I'm just happy that I have we have the ability to take our sweet time and do this. Of course, you ask any musician, you could give us more time, and that would be even better, but, then after a certain point, you just got to pull the trigger on something, or you get the Chinese democracy syndrome, where you spend $1 billion in a decade and come up with something that wasn't as good as the record that you wrote when you were on the streets,
It blows my mind that you worked with someone on this album who's supposed to be mastering it to put it out, but yet he drops the ball. I mean, that's your name going out there, man. I don't understand why somebody would do that, because nobody else would want to work with you.
Drops the ball is subjective. So what do you want from a mix and master, right? And it's so drops the ball means that, like, they did something, kind of implies they did something that's objectively shitty, and that ain't the case. It's just it wasn't quite the sound we were going for. And to be honest, the first time around, we were super hands-on with the mix and master, and that ain't what we do. We're musicians and we're writers. So we care a lot, and we know what we want it to sound like, but being able to achieve that on a technical basis is a whole different skill set that, you know, you'll... And I find when I'm showing people mixes and masters, people don't even know how to properly, and this includes myself, people don't even know how to properly describe from like a mixing perspective the difference in what they're hearing. If you hear someone say this sounds like too polished or too processed, not really. Like, that ain't often what they actually mean. Or, you know, when people use words like that, it's often just, it's a very subjective thing. Are the sounds appealing or not? So what we wanted to really get on the second version that we weren't able to do on the first, and keep in mind, it wasn't, there's a lot of factors here. One of the big factors is we had to go on a tour, and that kind of cut the time we had for the first round short, and that's why we're calling it rough version now, because we weren't able to take the time the first time because we had this tour that kind of jumped in and took us out of the studio. So during the tour, we decided to do the second version of it and to make that the final definitive album version. And really all this is us pushing for quality as hard as possible. We had to spend the money to do it a second time. You know, that comes out of our pocket directly because it's a business and works like any other. And just for us, it's a no-brainer, though. We have to do what we have to do to make it right. And you can't, you never know what result you're going to get when you turn it into someone to work on your product. And actually, the mix and master for the first time around, the one we didn't use, was the same team that we used on the last record. And we loved the way the last record sounded. So it's a different record, it's a different circumstance, it's a different time, and you can't expect it to turn out the same.
Looking back on all of this, John, what's impressed or excited you the most about making this new album, Weapons of Tomorrow, if anything, man? What sticks out the most for you about that impresses you?
So on the last record, I felt like the band finally really found its sound. I don't think we stepped out and did something wildly out of the box for us, but I think what we really did on that last record is condense everything we'd done and put it into one really cohesive package where it's like you can instantly tell that you're listening to our band and not any other band in the thrash metal genre or the metal genre. And I really like that. And I think we achieved that kind of by leaning into the stuff that's uniquely us, some of the grand epic and historical themes and some of the progressive flashes of musicianship, some of the really extreme stuff in there, some of the more technical stuff that I think separates us from a lot of the other modern thrash bands, which a lot of which tend to go the more punk rock direction. We kind of purged that stuff out of the Empire's Collapse record and went for just a metal on top of metal record. And I think that's really the essence of what our sound is. And personally, too, this is the direction I would take the band, because the lineup was different around Empire's Collapse to what we went into Woe to the Vanquished with. We went into this record with pretty much the exact same lineup as the last one, at least in terms of core songwriting. We lost the bass on the way. So we pretty much have the same team writing this, and that really helped. And we pretty much knew what we wanted to do. We wanted to follow up the last record. We wanted to continue in that direction. That doesn't mean repeat that record, but what it does mean is take the next step. So if that's a path that we set for ourselves, we're going to go further down our own path, our own way. And I think the response that the last record got really encouraged me to just do my own thing as a writer, as a lyricist, and to not worry about, is this palatable, is this accessible, am I too much in my own concept here, and to just go for it and give people what's in my head in the purest, unvarnished form. And that's kind of what I did on the last record, and people loved it. And a lot of people think it's our best record, and I think that's the popular consensus, is that Woe to the Vanquished is the best Warbringer record so far. And so we're hoping to basically cop that on every account. And I think the difference between this one and that last one is Woe to the Vanquished kind of had a side A that was all blistering thrash, and a side B that got blackened, experimental, progressive with some epic songs. Here, you still have those two basic elements, but it's more spread throughout the record. I think we're more willing to put some of the stuff that we saved for the B side on Vanquished up onto the A side on this record, and just to kind of put that foot of the band forward, because it's like epic, melodic, progressive side is something we've had to some degree or another since like the second record.
Are there any songs that didn't make this album that we could see down the line on another EP or a full length possibly?
No, not one. And actually, I've never written a song where I finished writing it and it didn't make the record. Not one, ever, in 6 records. I basically, different people have different creative processes, and I'm more or less, I won't even finish a song unless unless by the halfway point I'm like, yeah, this is a good idea, this is going to work. And we put a lot of meticulous effort into everything we do. So usually for something to even get to the point where it's finished, it has to meet our standards. So we haven't ever written we've had some like half songs that aren't working out the way we want. We throw them away, but we've never written a full song and had it not make the record.
Any tracks standing out more to you than any right now on this album? I know it must change every time you listen to it. I know these are your babies, but do you have any that stick out for you personally, possibly?
Oh, yeah, certainly. Ones that really stand out to me, there were 2 songs on there that were really like my babies specifically, as opposed to, the band. And that's the first and the last song, Firepower Kills and Glorious End. Both of these songs did not start with a guitar idea or anything. I wrote like a whole verse or chorus from them pretty much as it appears, and we wrote the music around it. So we're actually putting out a little documentary pretty soon about how we wrote and made this record, not just like studio footage, but we're really talking about the thought and the process behind each song. I'm calling it Science of Thrash. It's supposed to be a real analytical breakdown of our whole process. So that's going to come out pretty soon, and that'll really explain this stuff in the nitty-gritty. But we write each song a little bit different. Everyone, each one has like its first idea, and then other people sort of pile on to that initial idea if we think it's good, and we add to it. So for me, the ones that I started, Firepower Kills kind of set the theme for the record. It contains that line, Weapons of Tomorrow, and it's just a burner. I was thinking very like 1985 thrash, where it's, the riff's on the A string. It's a high-pitched riff rather than a low one. And it's just got pure adrenaline. And the other one I wrote, which I think is something I'm really proud of as a lyricist, is Glorious End. And that's kind of, I was imagining someone in, say, like the French army in 1914, right at the beginning of the First World War, where you got these chivalric, romantic-era 19th century men who are about to go bravely charge into the teeth of machine guns and get cut down by the tens of thousands. There's a single day in the very beginning of the First World War where the French army takes 27,000 killed, not killed and wounded, killed in a single day. Wounded, we don't even know. And that's just insane. And you always hear about how futile and pointless this is, but behind that is something else where I think, man, I look at that and I'm like, man, I really admire those men. Like, they were brave. They fought for something. They were willing to sacrifice. What was in their head? What were they thinking? And I tried to kind of imagine that. And I read my history stuff, so I read some of the accounts of people. And what I kind of came up with was this dialogue between a father and son. It's about bravery. It's about courage. It's about patriotism and nationalism. And it's kind of the son sort of valiantly lives up to all the ideas of bravery and of service and sacrifice that his father puts to him. But unfortunately, he's in World War I. He just gets cut down kind of meaninglessly when the battle actually comes, and then he ends the song sort of questioning it. And so I think I like the way it turned out a lot. It really came out as like a story. And, I've been writing, I study warfare. I'm trying to eventually be a history professor and teach people this stuff. I'm passionate about it. So I wanted to write a song that has a little bit of a deeper, more human angle on this than just like flag waving and glory. I wanted to really question what all that really means and what drives men to do this stuff.
This may sound.
So I'm really proud of that one.
This may sound morbid, but I'm a huge, I wouldn't say fan, but I'm a huge nerd in like history stuff, especially like Civil War, World War I.
Oh, fascinating.
Stuff
Utterly
like that. Yeah, I love it. I mean, and I hate that there's people that passed away, got cut down during those times. But it just interests me on everything that those guys went through, brother versus brother, stuff like that. I mean, it was crazy. So, to all those folks who sacrificed just for us to be sitting here now, I mean, I can't thank you enough. It blows my mind on how Civil War up till now things are.
Oh, I know. Civil War is a good. That's kind of where I start off on the stuff I'm really interested in, because that's the dawn of it. That's like early industrial warfare. You know, the lesson of the Civil War. If you look at the generals, you got Robert E. Lee in the Army of Northern Virginia fighting all like Napoleon Bonaparte-esque, where they're trying to win a single decisive battle. But on the other side, Ulysses S. Grant understands it isn't the single decisive battle anymore. It's the total like industrial manpower capacity of the state tied to the economy, and he's able to leverage the Union's advantage there to pretty much grind the South down. And that thinking is very, like that kind of thinking that Grant shows in the end of the Civil War, I think would be really on target for what's going on in the Western Front 50 years later in World War I. And so I get really into the meta and strategy stuff of it too. But then what makes that even more interesting is because you take something that's like a big picture geostrategic plan and you boil it down to the individual men that have got to go and do the plan and the situations they now have to deal with. And it's insane. It's beyond my frame of reference entirely. I don't need to go and watch some made up movie about fantasy characters to see a story that's like, wow, that's crazy. There's real ones done by real flesh and blood people that actually existed. And that just blows my mind. And so that song Glorious End tries to get behind some of the mindset of that. And there's a real sadness I feel when I read about some of this stuff. And I wanted to communicate some of that too.
Writing these new songs, John, does it challenge or push you to make each song different and show your versatility of your songwriting?
Oh, hell yeah. If I'm trying, it does. If I'm not, then no. But you're goddamn right, I'm trying. I've written now, I think if you don't count the instrumentals, I think there is something like 58 Warbringer songs with lyrics that I've written. It's a lot of different songs. And it's basically an aggressive and brutal band. How do I justify to myself making another album if I'm just going to fill it with the same stuff I put on the last one? Mm-hmm. I have to evolve. I have to develop, or I'm not an artist. I'm just doing commerce, you know? If I'm putting out a product for the sake of putting out a product, fuck me, get me off the stage. You know, that's my attitude, and I feel that way about a lot of people, and I'll piss people off saying that. So I'm adamant about this, and I have to push myself to write material that I consider to be new or do something that I haven't done before, or I don't think I have a right to make music to sell to people. That's how strongly I feel about that.
Yeah, if you can't stand behind your music, then how are we going to stand behind it? Because we know, as fans, we know when you're BSing it and putting it out there.
Damn right you do. That's how I know. I'm a fan, you know?
Yeah. Was it hard to choose between the current set of songs that are on this album? Which one would be the first one you want to put out, possibly?
I think that basically the types of songs makes it a little easier because we got like 4 songs that are like 6 to 7 minute epics on this record. So usually those aren't like the candidates for singles. And what I hope is the singles, the quicker numbers, like, so the one we put out, Firepower Kills, I think is quick, thrashy, catchy, has a really hooky riff, and it's just adrenaline boosting. So I think it's an easy one to grab onto, and that's why it's track 1, and that's why we put it out already. The track 2, similar, you know, more mid-pace tunes. That one you're going to be seeing a week from when we're talking right now on the 13th. We've got a music video coming out for it. There's a lot of shit coming out between now and the record. So that's going to be the second track, new track that we show everybody. And that one, too, is designed to be kind of, you know, just catchy, a headbanger, sing-alongable chorus, kind of like a Remain Violent with a little sneakier things going on in the riff. So that's a real cool number. And those are kind of the ones that sort of once we wrote them, we're like, these are singles. But what we're doing, too, we're also going to put out some media and visual material for some of the more epic ones following that. So I think we're actually doing, if you count Firepower Kills, 4 tracks within the next few months that are going to come out with some kind of visual media, a music video, like a lyric video, and I think like a live music video is what we're doing. So we really want to show some of the diversity that's on this record and show, hey, this band is no one-trick pony. You know, this isn't some retro thing. This band writes goddamn fucking songs, and a lot of them, and different ones. And you can pick any 2 and point to, you know, and they'll be like swimming into different genres altogether. You know, different lyrical themes, different concepts, different solos, different riffs, different keys, different, we really try not to repeat ourselves because there's a lot of metal out there, and we don't want to just be a drop in the ocean. We want our name to go in the book. We want people to remember our records as like, this is a goddamn record that shows, heavy metal done to 11 from the moment you put it on until the moment it ends, and with no compromise anywhere on the whole thing.
How was working with producer and friend Mike Plotnikoff, who also was producer on Woe to the Vanquished, and worked with artists such as In Flames and Fear Factory?
Yeah, and Saxon, actually, which I got to add that one in because I love me some Saxon. Anyway, he did the one with that Call to Arms record. It's got Lord Kitchener on the cover. Anyway, so he's a great guy. Mike Plotnikoff is fun. He's a very, you might describe him as a very zen persona. He's got this attitude in the studio that's just so calming, which is kind of, it's going to come out as it is meant to come out, and you need to have faith in this and just put yourself into it and not worry or overthink yourself. So this is a great counter to kind of my natural mindset, which is to overthink the fuck out of everything. You can kind of tell I'm an analyzer. That's the kind of guy I am. And so I find Mike Plotnikoff to be a great counterweight to that, because I'll get so worked up in the details of everything, and he's really got this mindset that helps you step back and sort of forget all that for a moment so you can just execute. And it's really, because it's a very different challenge coming up with the idea for a song, writing the song, versus actually executing that idea in the studio to where everything's crisp and tight and the performance is something you're happy with. Those are two entirely different challenges. And my favorite thing about working with Mike is he really helps you with that second part of execution on a mental level. He's really good about that.
So what made you guys want to remaster the tracks Fire, Power Kills, and Power Unsurpassed, man? What was it said you guys, let's redo these?
Well, I was talking about this a little bit earlier, but I'll elaborate. Pretty much Power Unsurpassed was not part of the recording sessions of Weapons of Tomorrow, and we just put that one out as a single like a year and a half ago, just kind of to put something out. So we wrote that one in a pretty short time. Carlos pretty much wrote the riffs, and I came up with the lyric for it. It was a pretty straight-ahead process, and we recorded it in a weekend. So basically, the amount of resources and time we had to do this in the first place wasn't what we had on the record. And when we were doing the record, we were like, should we give that track another pass? And we did. And we thought it was an improvement. And that's how it ended up going on the record. Because we thought, we were basically asking engineer, Zach Oren, we were going, what do you think of this one? How's it sound next to the other songs? And he's like, you're an idiot if you don't put this one on there. It's a great song. Put it on the fucking record. So that was our third-party opinion there, and we took it. I think it's a good song myself, but it wasn't originally planned to be on the record. So this was going to be 9 tracks. It ended up being 10 because if we don't put that on this record, it's not going to go on the next one likely, and it'll just be kind of this oddity that floats around as like a YouTube and Spotify link. And I think it's a good song. I prefer to have it on the record. As far as Firepower Kills, I think I went into that earlier, where that was part of sort of the first draft of mix and master of the record. We had to leave in the middle of that for tour. So the result, and I think honestly the band might have been too hands-on in the process, and we oddly shot ourselves in the foot a bit there. So we had it sent it off to a different, to Zach Owen, the engineer I just named, who worked on Waking into Nightmares, our second record, to give it a pass, basically with the idea, hey, we're not going to tell you a damn thing about this. Here's the tracks. Go for it. And that's sort of the version we have now. So sometimes as the artist, you gotta, usually we're very in the mindset that we keep a really tight control over everything we're doing. But in certain areas, it can actually pay to, when you're dealing with another creative person who's an artist in their own field, whether visual art or audio or anything, if you trust them and you know that they get what you're doing, it can actually be better to kind of hands off it and trust them to do what they do. But you have to find the right people. So that's sort of what we did this time. And it took us a few extra months. The release was originally going to be in January, February, but we can't compromise quality. We saw that some people weren't happy with that first mix, and that really kind of put the spark in our head. We're going to do something. Is that what we're going to put out if people aren't happy with it? No, we want to give people a record they're going to love, that they're going to fucking show their kids in 20 years if we can,
Who did the artwork for the album?
Same as last time, Andreas Marschall. He's German. He's done a lot of great shit. Some notable ones records I really enjoy that he's done are Sodom, Agent Orange, and Blind Guardian, Nightfall, and Middle Earth. I really like the covers for those, and I love those records. Two totally different styles and genres, both German. But anyway, yeah, so he's done that, and the guy has an interest, for the last record, he had an interest in the kind of historical themes and concepts, and I think he just nailed it. So it was a no-brainer going to him for this one, and this time he actually took a little, the last time I kind of really dictated the concept, and he sort of did it. This time he had more, I more or less handed him a looser concept, and what you get is largely his vision of it. The idea was to have, the weapons of the future, all the futuristic stuff, the drones, the spec ops, semi-robotic guys in the front and everything. They're coming out of sort of the old monuments in the back, and that monument, the soldier there, that's an actual. I've been using actual like World War I memorial monuments for some of the art and stuff we're doing because they look really somber and grim, basically, and it's real. It's not made up stuff. So I can put this real stuff in the context of our art, which is a little more fantastical, and I think it ties it into the real world, makes it represent something with some serious weight to it. This Weapons of Tomorrow concept was basically from the ashes of the two world wars, which is kind of represented by that Woe to the Vanquished red and copper color scheme that we had going on for the last record. You'll notice that's all in the background of the new cover, and in the foreground it's all blue and silver, futuristic and modern stuff coming out of it. So it's kind of supposed to show how we sort of built the military-industrial complex a century ago, and business is still good, and they're still moving forward. And where's that going to take us? That's kind of the idea of the record. Andreas Marschall, the artist, put in a cool touch. He was looking at so something I like. I'm a humanitarian. If you want to know my philosophical beliefs, go watch Carl Sagan talk about it, and he's pretty much a dead ringer for what I think. So I'm pretty much on the opposite end of this spectrum, but I like to use a lot of like totalitarian, like Soviet, like fascist-looking stuff on our album covers because it looks evil, and it's fitting for kind of the sort of the evil powers that we're kind of talking about, and there's been a rise in modern authoritarianism, so it's not like a thing that's only the last century. If we're not careful, it's the next century too, and so. He did something really neat. There's an Italian fascist propaganda artist called Gino Boccaccio, I believe. I could be saying that a little wrong. But the guy was really interesting, and he did all this, like, World War II fascist propaganda, basically, as well as, like, advertisements in that, like, old Italian way that, like, people might put on the wall of their kitchen. So it's a funny thing there. But there is a specific work he did where it's basically, it shows a smiling German soldier, a Nazi soldier, and he's holding out his hand to shake your hand. It's an Italian-German friendship propaganda poster. And just the idea of, like, the Wehrmacht smiling at you is kind of sinister, right? Because we know these guys are not some very nice customers, to say the least. So he wanted to draw that in. So the guy on the front is actually sort of a paraphrase of that, where it's this faceless, sort of like drone-faced guy of the future who's kind of sort of holding out his hand saying, join us. And there's something kind of evil and sinister about that. And he took that straight out of some real propaganda from the Second World War.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's awesome, actually. Just because I'm a history buff. I love stuff like that. Because it's interesting. Very interesting.
Well, dude, and if I'm going to try to show evil stuff on the cover, why would I show you made-up evil? I don't have to make it up. I can show you the real stuff, and I think that's more powerful.
Oh yeah, most definitely. Now I know you guys are not. I know you guys are not reinventing. Well, shit, I'm getting tongue-tied. I know you guys are not reinventing the wheel, but what does Warbringer bring to the table for music that's not out there as right now, if anything, possibly?
Oh, I'll tell you this. So we aren't reinventing the wheel, but we're perfecting it. So what that means is we're taking what was done in the 80s, what all our favorite metal is, and we're just asking the question over and over. How do we do this better, faster, sharper, smarter, stronger. We're basically, this is another reason Weapons of Tomorrow kind of is a cool thing. There's sort of like a side meaning of that, which is in regards to the band and its music, actually. I'm sick to death of being called a retro band when I never tried to copy anybody else's damn songs. I know what I like, and I want to write songs that make me feel that way, but I want them to be my songs, goddammit. And I want you to know the difference the second you put it on. So what we really try to do is to take sort of elements of all our favorite metal, most of which comes from the 80s and into the early 90s, and sort of boil it down into this condensed version. I have a funny analogy that I use for this, so I'll throw the analogy at you and see what you think. So in the original Jurassic Park, the big bad monster's the T-Rex, right?
Yeah.
Got to deal with T-Rex. It's the scariest, biggest dinosaur. I think by the recent one, not nearly as good of a movie, so that's not the point. Jurassic World or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. They already did a T-Rex, so they got to come up with a way to top it, right? That's sort of the predicament we're in. If Old Thrash is the T-Rex, we're the successor. We got to find a way to top it because we're coming after, so we can't. We have to top it, or why do we exist? So what they do in that movie to top the T-Rex is they come up with like this weaponized, like gene-modded, like Tyrannosaurus Raptor chameleon hybrid, and it can like go stealth, and it's smart, and it'll outwit you, and that was a cool little bit in a not that sweet movie, I thought. But anyway, just the idea there is interesting to me because I think that what we're trying to do is if 80s thrash is the T-Rex, we're like the gene-modded, weaponized version. We're trying to do something that's just like meaner, nastier, tighter, and just written out and like analyzed on every level. Sort of, I have a little marketing tagline for this record: 21st century thrash. We're trying to bring this style that we love into the 21st century, and to just like to do to it what the difference between like a World War II tank and a modern one. It's pretty much a tank, it's not a different machine, but the modern one is going to be faster, bigger gun, better armor, improved in every way. And that's what we're trying to do. Now, that's our mission. If we actually pull that off, that's for the listeners to decide. All I can tell you is I did the best I can.
What can fans expect at a show from Warbringer who have not got to see you guys live as of yet? What are they going to get, John, when they come to see you all?
Oh, you motherfuckers know what you're going to get. You're going to get your goddamn head blown off. Nothing else. Every time. Next question.
What made you want to become a musician? What was it spark for you that said, I want to do this?
I had no background in music before this band. Warbringer is actually my first attempt at any music whatsoever in my life. Never in marching band, never was in a choir, never played an instrument. What was for me is I think around late high school, I was a bit of a late bloomer with heavy metal, but I got into heavy metal, and as you guys who are here listening to this all know, that's the awakening of a passion, and it doesn't go anywhere. It grabs you, and it takes you where it does, and now you're a metalhead. You're into this stuff. Other music, I love plenty of music. I love music in general, but there's some itch that just sometimes I need metal, and with a capital M, God damn it. And I felt that then, and I still feel it now. So that's ultimately what got me here. There's a couple concerts I went to specifically that really put the spark in my head, and that was I saw Iron Maiden on the Dance of Death tour, and on the LA show of that, Bruce Dickinson fell like 8 or 9 feet, hit his back. They had to take him off the stage. They were going to put him in an ambulance and bring him to the hospital. The band plays through a whole instrumental section, so it's got 3 or 4 minutes because it's Iron Maiden, and he comes back on stage and finishes the set. And I really respected that move by him. That's not some you hear about Axl Rose blowing off an arena because of because his backstage wasn't right or something. And this guy's who I think is 10 times the musician is fallen 10 feet, and he's not going to even go and take care of his goddamn back. And he's 55, 60 or whatever. He's not even going to take care of himself because he's got to finish the show for the fans. And I really respect that. And I was I want to be like that. I still feel like that about Bruce Dickinson. I fucking love that guy. Real role model for me as far as what I want to be as a singer. I don't sound like him, but I think some of the writing and themes and stuff is a lot of what I do is very conceptual, kind of in the vein of stuff that Dickinson and Harris come up with. On the second one, was I saw Metal Church. It was Ronnie Monroe on vocals at the time. I saw him at the Ventura Theater, which was near where I grew up. And they started with that song, Start the Fire from the Dark. And it just, like, kicked in with a metal wail on the 4 count. And I was like, yeah, I got to do this. You know, 4 count. Yeah! Okay, this is where I belong. I need to be on the stage doing that, you know. And you know, like 3 of our albums start with a metal wail. You know, the last one did. This one does. Fuck. They're different metal wails, but you know, something about that just kicking in. The singer's gonna like shriek at you like a banshee, and the band's gonna go off into a storm of riffs and solos. Like, bring on the adrenaline, fucking metal. That's why I guess we're not trying to quote reinvent the wheel, because I don't want to change that. You know, that's why I'm here.
So far, is there a country that stands out or shocks you that Warbringer gets support from, or your music even gets played in those areas, man?
Oh, dude, just anywhere in the world, man. We've been to most of the continents. I haven't been to Africa or the Middle East, but I've been through North and South America, Southeast Asia, Europe a jillion times, including a lot of the out of the way stuff in like East Europe and the Balkans and all that. So I've seen a ton of shit. What you find, actually, people are way more similar than they're different, you know? That's the first thing. Like, basically the same reason you or I like heavy metal is the same reason a guy in Bosnia or Thailand might like heavy metal, you know? It's because of the music. There's something about that people anywhere can grab onto. That's not to say every country's the same. You sure as hell notice when you're in China, this ain't Kansas anymore, so to speak, you know?
Sure.
Nothing, it doesn't really shock me, because I basically come from the assumption that people are generally the same, you know. They like when good stuff happens to them. They don't like when bad stuff happens to them. I mean, this sounds really basic, but that's ultimately that is a bigger similarity than the language and the culture and all the differences together, the core human stuff. So I really believe that, and I do think that I more or less have about the same experience, whether it's people here in LA that are basically, you know, grew up exactly where I did, or whether it's people that I can't speak to at all after a concert. I get the exact same energy and feeling when someone's just seen a show, enjoyed it, and they're happy about it. And that's kind of why I'm there. That's what I try to get the audience to feel every show. You know, as angry and aggressive as this music is, something I think people outside of it don't really understand is it actually makes you feel good. You know, I put on the title track for Dark Angel, Darkness Descends the other day, and that's a motherfucking brutal song. And, you know, the city is guilty, the crime is life, the sentence is death, darkness descends. It's as like morbid as you can get. And I'm having a blast. I'm driving the car, and now my car feels like it's a tank rolling over skulls, and I'm just like, ugh! And it feels great, you know? So it's even though it's this morbid, you know, skulls and fire music and shit, just having an outlet for that, for the anger you feel day to day living in this fucking rat race they call civilization. I think metal is really important, especially, you know, the aggressive kinds of metal anyway, are really important because they give you an outlet for that and a way to channel what you're going to be feeling anyway, just you're a person on Earth. And that's, again, why I think there's kind of this universal appeal to it. I'll tell you one thing, though. Here's an anecdote that popped into my head for your earlier question. I wrote this song for Empire's Collapse. It's kind of a weird one. I was sort of thinking, what if, I was hearing some of the early 90s Ministry records, and I'm like, these are basically thrash guitar lines. And I'm like, what if you had sort of a crossbreed between like a 90s Ministry song that's like kind of thrashy and like an Exodus Toxic Waltz type mid-pacer, you know, a classic thrash type number. And that one became the turning of the gears. And the sort of theme for that song was kind of like the mindless and numbing repetition of just being like a working person for like a corporate master today, you know, which a lot of people are. And I remember we went to Hong Kong, and a lot of people came and commented on that song specifically. This one woman told me that her employer has like a special phone she carries so she can be summoned into work at any time, day or night. And she's like, man, that song, Turning of the Gears, I felt that. And so it's kind of weird when an idea you wrote, when there's like people that are really experiencing that and that's their lives and they connect to it on a level deeper than you, the writer, even did. So that one was interesting.
Folks, you want to get out and pick up Warbringer's new album, Weapons of Tomorrow, which comes out April 24th via Napalm Records. You can also pre-order this album right now. John, how can folks stay in touch with you guys, buy some merchandise, tour dates, all this good stuff of Warbringer? How can they do that?
How can they do that? Well, we got social medias like everybody else, and we'll talk to you on there. If you look around Reddit, actually, you can find me, and I'll argue with you. You know what else, too? We are a band that has decided we will never have a paid meet and greet, and the biggest way to meet us is just come to the show and fucking talk to us. We're there. We make time to talk to our fans. We care about you guys. We want to meet you face to face. I love to answer any questions anyone have, like I've been doing this whole time I've been on the phone with you. And I do that in person, and that's something I'm happy to do because, without people coming out to the concerts, banging their heads, buying the merch, supporting the bands, I don't get to make this music, and it's a gift that I get to. So I try to give people the number one thing I do is I try to give people the time of day face to face, even if my ass is tired, and to talk to them and to answer their questions. And I feel very strongly about that. So the best way you can talk to us is show up to a show and talk to us. We're there.
John, before I let you go, would you care to do a promo for the show, good sir?
All right. Hello, this is John Kevill from Warbringer, and you were listening to BODS Mayhem Hour.
Everybody stick around. We got some great stuff coming up, and you only hear these interviews right here on BODS Mayhem Hour podcast. Please get out and check out the Facebook page. It has our new podcast link, plus it has our YouTube link, which everything and anything that we have is going to go up on the podcast YouTube link. Also, please get out and support Warbringer. Get their new album that's going to come out, Weapons of Tomorrow, plus our old stuff. Support this band. And I wish you guys nothing but the best of luck, John.
Thank you, John. It's been great being on the show. Thanks for having us, and we'll see you guys on the road. There's going to be a number of tours, USA and Europe and probably elsewhere, coming up in 2020 to 2021. And, we're going to go take this record on the road and blow some goddamn heads off.
I want to say this before we conclude the interview. For the folks out there that is listening, Tennessee was devastated by a tornado. It devastated a part of Tennessee. Please, if you can, get out and support and donate to these folks because their lives have changed dramatically. Some may not ever get their life, not their lives back, but their day-to-day things back. So this is a huge thing that's happened. If you can donate to them, do so. Do whatever you can to help these folks out, guys. Please.
Good that you're putting it out there. I mean, people, the little guy's got to help out the little guy, man. Everybody's in this together. His whole life thing. You got to help other people out because you don't know when it could happen to you,
That's exactly right. John, I appreciate you, man. Thank you for being on the podcast this evening.
All right. Thank you. It's been great, John. Thank you for the interview, and thank you for the support of our band.